Hi, I'm Dave Kluff from Worldwide Technologies, and I'm here to talk to you about WWT and F5 and AI. So WWT has been doing a lot of work with AI over the years, almost 14 years in the industry. We've actually put together a whole entire approach to the market. We actually look at the understanding of the problem that the users have and the systems that they go through. We actually put together a strategy around that. We look at the infrastructure design that can actually address that strategy. We'll actually go through the testing and certification, which is actually really interesting. And that's one of the areas we start to partner with F5 as we find out some of the issues that we find with AI. And it's really interesting because you often think about AI, okay, I've got data, I've got these really cool ideas, it's going to solve all my world problems, et cetera. But really what it comes down to is you've got to have really, really solid data, you got to have really solid security, and you have to have a really good solid transport system. And without those multiple building blocks, the rest of the foundation of the house and the house that you build on top of it actually will fail pretty quickly. So what we've tried to do with F5 is address those early on, go through that testing and problem solving stage as well as the implementation stage. And then as we go to the governance and implementation of that, everything's set in stone. We actually know who gets the right type of data sets, who can actually work on those systems the right way, how to transport those data sets through the network properly, and then how to consume those and actually offer a really good product to the customer. So we actually run through that. We'll actually go through the automation optimization. Once we actually build the full stick build operations, then we go through and optimize that with automation and orchestration to actually make that streamline. Then we go to deployment. Deployment's usually one of the challenging areas. That's where we find another level of, oh, well, we didn't really understand this security area. I need to actually move this workload into the right way. And that actually, that's another area where we sometimes go back, do some retesting and implementation, and then we go further into delivery and adoption. Again, we find these areas again. It's always a constant, let's say, a step forward, sometimes a half step back to actually move that forward. And then once we get that moving along, now we have to figure out, okay, how do we support that properly? So we have to get the right people trained and certified on this. And then we also have to make sure that the right people are authorized for certain parts of the network. And that's also where F5 can basically streamline the transmission of those systems so that not everybody sees it, only the people who need to see it can see the data that's required. And that's another area that's actually interesting that we have to run through. And oftentimes we actually go through expansion, but we'll go into other parts of the business, but we also have to go to maintenance and support of these systems. As we go into new areas of the network, we find other security profiles and implementations we have to put together, and the transport challenges that F5 has been very, very helpful for us in terms of designing and implementation. So what we'll do is we'll move forward to the next slide. So some of the key things that we see as we go through this, we see data security issues, data transport and efficiency. This is continually a challenge here. We also see data integrity. It is so critical to make sure that the data gets sent and data gets delivered is reliable and very, very clean and capable to actually offering a good AI outcome and not allow hallucinations and other bad implementations. Then data compliance, from what we see from compliance officers. We've seen several times where we've actually gone in and helped the compliance officers make sure the data is governed in the right way, the right people access that. And then sometimes we do a lot of hybrid solutions where we'll make sure that the data that's really critical to business does not get outside of the company. And even though in some cases people actually put it outside the company and we actually have to do some encryption on that or an automation to actually make sure that other bad actors or competitors don't use that as a competitive advantage to the customer. That's really, really critical here. And being able to mark the flows and understand where that goes and govern that well is really, really critical. The other part that's interesting is being able to get more efficiency from a multi-tenancy perspective. As we go through this journey, we find typically we'll start out with one AI instance, and then we'll start to add more to that. And then you want to be able to utilize your GPU farms, your delivery farms in a more effective way. And that multi-tenancy allows you to put that in the right places and account for that and then grow that properly. So really, I think the key thing that we all go through all this is having the right tools, having the right partner, having the right delivery is really critical to a really good outcome for your AI experience. And F5 offers a lot of those capabilities that are really interesting here. So they have the security and network and multi-tenancy systems. We use these in our lab, so we have these available today from F5 for the high-performance transport systems. This is continually a challenge. We continue to go from 100 gig, we went to 200 gig, now we're 400 gig, we're actually getting an 800 gig transport systems and testing systems in our network, and now we're actually preparing for the next 1.6 terabit. It's just kind of mind-blowing, but it keeps going. And I guess a good example of this is when we actually do get a data workload, typically let's say we run through a RAG workload, we will start with let's say 1 gig, and it will quickly expand to up to 12 to 15 gig once we actually tokenize it and put it into a vector database. And that gets even more pronounced as we get to larger and larger language models. So continually storage, transport, and understanding more data gives you better outcomes, better understanding, but handling that and securing that also has its challenges. Again, as I mentioned before, making sure you have the security and critical control between different assets in your network is critical, not only from a compliance perspective, but also from a security perspective, and actually just general good hygiene, right? That's another thing we actually run through that and say, okay, let's do this the right way, build that house right, build that foundation right, so you have a very, very easy way of developing that further. Then we also look at the transport efficiencies from the Kubernetes services, being able to offer maximum efficiency inside the network. This is actually really interesting in terms of how we can actually tie the neck into the CPU and pipeline that approach. This is similar type of operations. We worked with F5 in the past, dealing with Kubernetes as well as virtualization clusters. I mean, I think you'll probably recognize this from the early days of OpenStack. This was like the encapsulation, de-encapsulation killer of most applications and difficulties. This straight line makes a big difference, and it makes a big difference from an energy utilization perspective as well. This, you can see, lots of memory, lots of back and forth, lots of heat, lots of CPU. And then I think being able to do the workloads with an offload into the network, into what we're doing right now with the Bluefield NICs is absolutely critical, because these are the bellwethers of your network, being able to write at the end of your application, yet that application to network interface, right? And be able to have really good intelligence, where we look to see more and more enhancements with Bluefield 3, with Big IP, as we get to Ultra Ethernet and new systems around that, where you start to spray and be able to combine those systems. We're looking to see some of these NICs actually going into the storage side as well. And the storage side is another whole new can of worms, because the amount of support that you need to be able to actually secure that and actually differentiate that across the board as well. So we look to see an incredible amount of new opportunities to develop and then build really, really good architectures and solutions around. So we look at this for the ultimate result. We're really looking to make sure that we at WWT partnered with F5 can take you on that full journey. We can talk about your understanding of the problem. We can go through your foundry. We can look at building a studio and figuring out, okay, what is the what if and how to do this the right way. And then we can actually take it to our factory to actually accelerate that particular system and deliver that at scale, and then maintain that at scale over time and add additional resources and capabilities. So we're really happy with our partnership with F5. We continue to drive that and continue to build that. We add a tremendous amount of capabilities into our network to move that forward. We're about, right now, we're over a $20 billion company. We're one of the largest minority-owned companies in the world. We continue to be one of the top partners for most of the tier ones, including F5 and others, and we'll continue to be doing that into the future. So we're here to stay. A lot of really good places to explore, and I look forward to talking to you as well as partnering with F5 for further success.